Today we will be subtracting integers. So the first set of directions asks us to evaluate an expression. They tell us that x minus y is our expression, and we've got a set of values for x and for y with each of the problems. And so what we're going to do is substitute. So when you see the word evaluate, that means that we're going to take the 14, we're going to put it in for x. You're going to take the negative 2, you're going to put it in for y. So what I've got is 14 minus, and then I write down the y term, negative 2. Now, let me go ahead and put parentheses around this so you can see it a little bit better. What this is saying is we're starting at 14 and we're taking away negatives. Well, if you take away negatives, you'd be going in the opposite direction of a negative. You'd be going in the positive direction. So think of this as the opposite of negative 2. So that's what this represents. The opposite of negative 2. That's what this minus sign is saying right here. Well, what's the opposite of negative 2? It's a positive. So this is the same thing as 14 plus positive 2. And so when I have a plus positive, they're the same sign, so I end up adding those two numbers. So that gives me 16. So for the next problem, same sort of thing. You're going to substitute first. Remember, our expression was x minus y. That's what it says up here. And so I'm just putting the negative 11 in for x, the positive 11 in for y. So I've got negative 11, take away 11. Well, and this one's a little different because this is read as the opposite of 11, the opposite of positive 11. So that would mean that if I was to rewrite it, it would be plus negative 11. So when you see a minus sign, if you think of it as the opposite of the other number, then you'll be able to figure it out. At least you'll be able to write it as an addition problem. So now I have a negative 11 plus negative 11, which makes negative 22. That is our answer. So it's the opposite of positive 11, which is take away 11. So we're going to go in the negative direction further because that's where we started. So the next one, same sort of thing. X minus y is our expression. We're just putting negative 8 in for x, negative 15 in for y. So we've got negative 8, take away negative 15. So here I'm taking away negatives. So again, this is read as the opposite. So we're starting at negative 8, and then this minus sign right here means the opposite of negative 15. Well, the opposite of a negative is a positive. So this is the same thing as writing negative 8 plus positive 15. Well, here we have opposite signs, so we actually have to subtract these two numbers. So when I subtract, I get 7, and there's more positives than there are negatives, so that's why it's positive 7. Well, in these next problems, they're word problems, and what we have to do is subtract two numbers. And so let's take a look at our problem. The high temperature one day was negative 1 degrees Fahrenheit. So what is important is this was the high temperature. The high temp was negative 1 degrees Fahrenheit. The low temperature was negative 5. So the high means this was the bigger number. So if you look at a vertical number line here, here's 0. Here's negative 1. Negative 2, negative 3, negative 4, negative 5. So there's negative 5 down below. So it says, what is the difference? Difference means they want us to take away. They want us to subtract those two numbers. So it looks like this. Negative 1 take away negative 5. So we have our high temperature, our low temperature, and they want to know what was the difference between the high and the low. So we started with the high, and then we're going to the low. So now, let's go ahead and change it to an addition problem. So I'm going to add the opposite here. And so I'm adding the opposite, and when I do that, I have an addition problem, and I have opposite signs, and that answer is 4. So 4 degrees Fahrenheit is the difference of those two temperatures. Well, taking a look at our next one, it says the temperature changed from 5 degrees Fahrenheit at 6 to negative 2 degrees at midnight. How much did the temperature decrease? So how much did it decrease? So we want to do 5 degrees minus negative 2 degrees. So minus negative 2 because that's what it decreased to right here, and it started at 5 degrees. How much did it decrease? Well, that's why I put the minus sign right in between the two. So now we're going to change it to an addition problem. So let me rewrite it this time. Keep the first number the same. Subtraction to addition, next number to its opposite. They're opposite signs, so you're going to subtract, and you're left with 3 degrees Fahrenheit. Positive because there's more positives than negatives. Let's take a look at our next problem here. It says that a small business reported a net loss of $86,000. So that's important. And what else is important? Well, this word right here, loss. What do you think that means? It means minus. It means like a negative number. A negative is what we're thinking of when we see that word loss. And a net profit of $32,000 in 2005. So what does that mean? Well, that means a positive. So that's what you think of when you see the word profit. It means positive. Loss means negative. So how much did the company's profit change? Profit change. Well, it changed from 2004 to 2005. This means you want to subtract. That's what that means. And so from 2004, so that's where we're going to start. So this is our starting point. Start here. And then finish at 2005. So let's go ahead and write down 2004 was 86,000, but it was a loss, so negative. To the profit, which was 32,000, so minus. And it had a net profit of 32,000. And so now we want to find out the difference. How much change did we end up having? And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to change this to an addition problem here. And we'll go ahead and keep the first number the same. Add the opposite. And then from there we'll go ahead and combine them. Now we're adding these two numbers. And so when I go ahead and add them, I end up with bringing down those zeros, and then you have to do the 2 and the 6, add to make 8. The 3 and the 8, add to make 11. Now, the answer is negative. However, really, they want to know what the change is. And so here, the change is going, I'm going to use the absolute value for this change because it didn't change in the negative. It actually changed in the positive. And so the change was $118,000 was the change in amounts. And so since it's a dollar sign, I'll put that in there as well. So I took the absolute value because it did go from a loss to a profit. And so it changed for the better, not for the worse. And so that's why I ended up taking that absolute value there. Let's take a look at our next one here. And so it was the daytime temperature on the moon can reach 130 degrees Celsius. At night, the temperature can drop to negative 110 degrees. What is the difference between the high and the low? Okay, the high is this one right here. So this is the high temperature. And then it can drop to 110. So this is the low right here. So we want to find the difference between the high and the low. I'm going to subtract them. 130 minus negative 110. And so I'm going to go ahead and do some subtraction. That means I'm going to add the opposite. So what changes here, again, is the signs. So I'm going to add the opposite. And so now I go ahead and add those numbers. I get 0, 4, and 2. So 240 degrees Celsius, not Fahrenheit, but Celsius, is the change in temperature between the high and the low. Well, those are types of problems that you're going to see on tonight's homework. Good luck.